My ideal Florida would be a Florida that cares so much about our environment that corporations are not allowed to exploit our waters, our oceans, our land, where we don't allow money to affect our state in a negative way. That's what I feel would be the dream Florida.
So my name is Michelle Colson. I'm 27 years old and I am a professional mermaid and underwater model. The tails usually come like this, so I'm gonna get like mermaid technical here. Usually the tail comes in like this. So you get the skin, which is this, and then you have the monofin. A professional mermaid is basically just a mermaid entertainer. We are just another form of entertainment in the entertainment industry for different types of events, ranging from little kids' birthday parties, festivals, grand openings, things like that. So this is where like your feet would go if you were gonna put it in. So just kind of like that. And then you put both feet in there. Now you can use the monofin without the skin. That's usually how I suggest people start, because this is a whole nother scenario. And then now you're a mermaid. And that's how that works. This brings up a lot of memories because this was my starter. And I'm never gonna get rid of it. This one will be in my life forever. So I guess I could say I've been a mermaid my whole life. I've just always been a water baby. I was born in the water. I could swim before I could walk. I used to be a competitive swimmer when I lived in Mexico. Just always had this like urge to be in the water, this love for the water. I became a professional mermaid about 3-4 years ago, and I wanted to use my platform as a mermaid to also raise awareness about conservation issues and our environment, our planet. The first time that I ever saw a freshwater spring, it had always been a dream of mine to swim in water so clear. Just fell in love. I immediately fell in love. Because Florida is water, basically, from the ocean, the rivers, the springs, there's a lot of mermaids in Florida. There is a mermaid community. And it's not just in Florida. Mermaid community encompasses all of the merfolk, all over the world, because there's also mermen. For me, being a mermaid is not for I look beautiful. It's really because I feel like I am a mermaid. I am a maid of the water. And so I do still go to meetups. I do still talk to mermaids. I just more so started aligning myself with mermaids who are also aligned with my values and who are also doing the same thing, who are for conservation of our waters, who are conscious about how we should be acting with the wildlife, with the vegetation, you know, not wearing gems that are gonna fall in the water and are gonna get eaten by a fish. And so for me, being a mermaid is all about conservation, about raising awareness, and consciously knowing what you bring to the table for our planet. So this is the Florida Springs Institute in High Springs, because this is where I kind of started my conservation, kind of the hub of all of the information where everything happens. So this place houses the lead scientists that go out and get all of the information that we use as advocates and people that are out, you know, exploring the springs. I used to volunteer here. That's kind of how I got started. And what I would do is just, when people would come in, they'd ask me some questions and I would walk them around, give them a little tour. One of the biggest questions is like, what's a spring? So basically a spring comes from the aquifers. So this is where water from underground gets pushed up and out and into this freshwater spring that then feeds rivers and eventually the ocean. This in particular is my favorite part of the website, and this is because it really goes to show you all of Florida springs, their magnitude, and it talks about them. So all of these little dots that you see on the screen are springs in Florida. You can't go wrong in trying to go spring hunting and finding a spring. Anyone can access this information. All you have to do is go to the Florida Springs Institute website, and I believe it's on their drop-down menu for resources. Conservation is languageless, I guess you could say, in the sense that the universal language, I feel, is taking care of our planet. And being bilingual, I've started to incorporate Spanish into my videos. So primarily I am on Instagram and TikTok.
Los manatíes están muriendo de hambre y necesitan nuestra ayuda. Según la Comisión de Florida, al menos 358 manatíes han muerto en Florida desde el 1 de enero.
I would say a good amount of people in the state of Florida are Spanish speakers. There's not a lot of information to even educate them on conservation for our waters, our springs, our environment. How I experienced it firsthand is with my mom. When I sent my mom information about the springs, it's all in English. And she came back with so many questions, like, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? What And describing it to her in Spanish, she got it. Even though she can write English, even though she can read it and she speaks it, she's more comfortable listening to things in Spanish, learning things in Spanish. I have to utilize every single aspect of myself and what I am capable of to raise this awareness, and that's one of those ways. Freediving focuses on your breath and the ability for you to calm your body enough and your mind enough to not utilize as much energy to be able to get down to the depths that you want and to be able to stay underwater longer. Meditation is really key to freediving and having a longer breath hold, because meditation really makes you aware of what your body is doing, what your body is capable of doing, and calms your mind. You really want to be focused on that, because a lot of things could go wrong underwater. When I first found out about COVID, I was getting ready to leave to Mexico to visit family. Within 5 days of being in Mexico, I had every single one of my gigs and events cancel on me for the entire year, up until like November, which was my last gig, which was very hard because it was the first year of my professional mermaid entertainment business that I was taking off. I was super thrilled, super excited, because I was pretty much booked every other weekend. It's just very disappointing because I worked so hard to get those gigs and to get the work, to then it all be canceled and from like, I don't even know how to explain it, you know, like some of those events took me months of back and forth and work and like to try and get to then a 5-minute phone call like, hey, it's canceled. We're canceling. Oh, it's canceled. It completely changed my whole year to what am I going to do? This is my full time. This is what I do. It wasn't until I got back to the States and took about 2 weeks to myself, sat at home or went to nature, went to the springs, meditated, and really just try to get out of this funk of like, my life is over, what am I gonna do? Like, you know, that depression, I guess, and feeling stuck and not being able to do anything about it. It's like, I know lots of artists who unfortunately let the depression and let the despair kind of take over and are now in a worse place than they were before the pandemic. And how could you not? I mean, nobody in this world has gone through a pandemic like this. So there's no guidebook on how to handle something like this. And so for me now, it's more so trying to just work with it because it's here to stay for a while. This isn't something that's just gonna go away. At first, it was like my whole world crumbled down. Looking back at it now and where I am today and what it took me, I'm grateful. I don't regret anything that happened. I see it as a blessing in disguise because I learned a lot about how to run my business the right way. Gigs are starting to come and things are starting to slowly get back to normal, and it works.
My love for the springs kind of started at Ginny Springs because that's the first time that I ever experienced what a freshwater spring was. Unfortunately, I don't really go to Ginny Springs often because it's just the campground itself, the people that run it, and what goes on there that I don't necessarily align with. Once I found out that they had been selling water from those springs for over 20 years, that was like a shock for me, right? And diving a little bit deeper into it, getting involved with the organization called our Santa Fe River and the Florida Springs Institute and the Florida Springs Council, I realized that this was something that I wasn't okay with. I found out that there was a permit getting ready to expire to pump water out of those springs in particular. When it comes to pumping, right? Everybody in the state of Florida has to get their water from somewhere. And all of the water, from our drinking water to the water that, you know, we use in our faucets, just all of it comes from the aquifer. We don't need to put our spring water in water bottles. We can use tap water, which comes from the same place that these bottling companies are getting the water. When I found out that Nestlé purchased the bottling plant that the Ginny was selling the water to, that was just like, for me, right? Because I knew that Nestlé was gonna want as much water as they could from that spring. So the permit was for a little over 1 million gallons of water a day. Nestlé, being involved, obviously wants to pump out the full amount. So to bring awareness to this issue, we wanted to utilize that name, Nestlé, that everyone in the world knows, to our advantage. And it worked. The news went international. So getting involved in protests, organizing my own protests, trying to get people involved, trying to get the mermaid community involved, and then also boycotting these places, right? So I don't go to Ginny. So with a renewable resource like the springs, like the aquifer, yes, it's a renewable resource, but if we're pumping out the water faster than it can renew itself, then that's not good. And that's what's happening now. And now we're running out of fresh drinking water. So like at what point do we say enough is enough? And enough is enough. And
So it should be protected, and the water management districts really should be doing their job, which is to protect our waters. And unfortunately, they're not.
The Suwannee River Water Management District held a meeting to either approve or deny the renewal of this permit. Well, this battle has been going on for 2 years. So this meeting has been 2 years in the making. A lot of hard work, a lot of protests, a lot of tears, a lot of work.
Good morning. I ask, in behalf of all of the mermaids, all of the freedivers that could not be here today, that love the springs, that are advocates for our water, that you deny this permit.
We kind of all unfortunately knew what was going to happen. We were just hoping for a miracle.
Mr. Key?
Yes.
Ms. Sanchez?
Yes.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Sessions?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Chair Dow?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carried.
The plant was granted the permit to pump out a little under 1 million gallons of water a day for 5 years. However, we're not done fighting. This is an issue that we will continue to fight. So now what is happening is our Santa Fe River and the Florida Springs Council are suing the Suwannee River Water Management District. Of course, these are nonprofits, so they rely heavily on people's donations. Unfortunately, as this fight continues, the springs continue to degrade. So for people who don't see it happen, who don't see the algae occur in the springs, who don't see the lack of wildlife, who don't see the lack of vegetation, it's hard for them to grasp just how horrible really this is. And as sad as it is for me, it also fuels me. It makes me want to fight harder. It makes me want to not stop. Start changing those laws. Start putting people in the water management districts and in our government that really actually do care about the preservation of our waters. Part of the reason why I want to get my degree in political science and environmental science, because eventually I will be one of the senators passing bills that affect in a positive way our waters. If you want your grandkids to live here, 50, 60 years from now, you need to do the work now. Because if we don't, there won't be a Florida. There just won't be. And how do you do that? How do people look into that? How do people get involved? Check out the Florida Springs Institute website. Check out the Florida Springs Council website. Get involved with local nonprofits that are for conservation. Ask questions. Get involved in the politics of Florida. Get involved in our elections. Make conscious decisions about your consumerism, how you use water. And it's very attainable. There's just gotta be a lot of people who want the same thing.